So I am delighted to have Dennis joining us from Rio de Janeiro, and also a little envious. Dennis is known for embracing the life of a perpetual traveler and has achieved an impressive feat that many of us aspire to, securing 2 deals in under 2 months and from the beach, no less. His journey is particularly remarkable considering he achieved this following a return to the Inventright program after a year-long hiatus. One of the many unique aspects of his story is how his first deal came about through a very innovative approach. So rather than investing in a costly prototype, he revisited interested companies and proposed sharing the manufacturing cost in exchange for a higher royalty rate. This strategy proved successful, leading to his first deal. Not long after, Dennis struck his second deal, so recent, in fact, that the ink is still wet. And I'll be learning the details right along with you. So Dennis, with your permission, I'd like to kick off our discussion with a few questions.
For sure.
Okay, super. So again, before we jump in and start hearing about deal number 2, I thought we'll start with a couple easy ones just to make sure everybody's caught up, and then we'll get into the juicy stuff. So how long were you on hiatus from the Inventright program?
How long, like how fresh is the program for me?
No, so how you were part of the Inventright program and then you took a break, correct?
Right. Yeah, so actually how I went about this, like during my studies in Zurich, it's already 6 years ago. I also took the Inventright program, and now I would just call it I played around and I experimented with like the approach. I like learned the theory, and oh my God, I'm not sure if you guys heard entrepreneurs say that, but I've heard some friends and entrepreneurs say that if I had known how difficult that road would be, I would probably not have done it, or I would have probably not have taken the first step. So it feels for me like such a long time, and yeah, so the first Inventright program is 6 years ago, and I was on and off because obviously I had to make my generate my regular income as well, and that was in startup and medical technology, and so on and off. But my first training, it's a long time ago, yeah.
And then once you returned, I know that you ended up with Coach Scott, who is fantastic. Right. How soon after returning did you end up landing that first deal?
Okay, so I re-entered Inventright a year ago, a little more. So that was November in 2022. And 1 year after, I closed the deal with that American company.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so let's get into a little more of the juicy stuff. How did you come to the idea of investing in the manufacturing and then, of course, asking for that larger royalty rate rather than what so many people do, investing in a costly prototype?
Yeah, well, I have to say, even though actually, I'd be curious to know, real brief, whoever can raise their hand, like who has gone through the Inventright program. I did some research, checked out the group, but is it everybody that went through the program? Okay, like at least 50%. What would you say?
Yes, the majority of folks are here via Inventright.
Right. So, yeah, I followed the protocol, and one thing the Inventright coaches, they just keep on repeating over and over again. It's you have to reach out to a lot of people. It's a numbers game, and And I have done that. I started with a list of 30 companies. I extended it to 50, to 80, to 100. And oh, I'm sure you guys know it. Like it's really tough work, and you have to do it yourself. Like you really have to. And after a while, I got dismotivated, or perhaps that's not even correct. Like I got this motivated so many times, and back up at it again, and so at least one time I was even putting the idea on ice and saying, okay, look, now I have to really choose for a career and go 100% at it. And you guys have experienced that. I'm sure. For me, that was medical technology and startup. And basically I didn't have a minute for inventing. And if I had, like, I was already up in that, like business hemisphere in my brain. Like I didn't want to know anything about deals or sales or reaching out to companies. And so I put the idea on ice, and that was for a few years, even 3 years, I believe, until I remember kind of getting a sense of expertise in that startup job, and I had a little more time, a little more creativity, and I was like, hey, that was a good product. I think it was not like this highlighter idea. I think it's probably not a $1 million idea, but I think it's one simple idea. So I have to get at it again. So I again reached out to a number of companies, and I reached out to Inventright. Started working with Coach Scott again, and then I still got good feedback, especially in distribution, and manufacturers were interested, but it didn't quite happen yet. And after reaching out to 50 more companies, I was like, okay, I always get similar feedback. It's a cool product, but it's too expensive, like very simplified. I was like, okay, like then perhaps really it's not meant to happen. And I was just gonna put it on ice again, not give up, but pivot to other concepts I had already in the pipeline, when I had the idea, okay, perhaps I should try something different. I knew that prototypes would, like fancy prototypes. I had simple mock-ups that proved the point, and I love how Inventright teaches that. You don't have to get a fancy prototype, but you have to prove the point, right? You have to create credibility that your product can do the job, right? And then still some people, they are very emotional, even in business. So they want to have something in their hand that excites them, and it's very emotional. So I was like, okay, perhaps I should really create these prototypes. I reached out to a few prototyping companies, got some quotes in, and probably also some of you guys have been there. They can be very expensive. So I was just, I was amazed by the sum they wanted for a handful of prototypes. And I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. I literally wrote one email, I copy pasted it to a few of the interested companies, and I was like, hey, look, I'm willing to invest part of the molding cost. I already had a good idea of how big that would be, and also I do have that market feedback, and again, they're showing, like, I guess showing my credibility. I'm willing to do the work as well. So I'm willing to connect you to the buyers, and I think Inventright calls this, and probably it's a generic term, pull-through marketing, right? So these two ingredients of, hey, they call it skin in the game. I'm not going to pay everything, because I also want them to, like, not only say they think it's a good idea, but also to prove it. They need to invest money and time, and I'm going to do the same. And so these ingredients seem to work, to the extent that two companies got talking again, and one of them said, let's go for it. And that's the company which is going to sell the first highlighters at the end of the month, like this month. Mhm.
Okay, so that's incredible. One question that's come up already, and I'm not sure how much you're able to share, but and you did just mention it now, so I think it's safe to say that your first product is a multi-use, multifunctional highlighter. How would you describe it?
Yeah, so I looked at the market, I studied that, and actually, again, I already mentioned that I had this idea, or at least I started thinking the Inventright way when I was studying. So I remember sitting there in Zurich in like my friend's apartment, and my friends, they studied medicine, and I saw them juggling with four highlighters, five highlighters in their hands, and their like caps were laying all around, and they were systematically working on their text. So one color for illnesses, one color for medicine, one color for biological pathways or biochemical, and what else, I don't know. And I was like, okay, there needs to be a simpler way. So basically I looked at what highlighters are out there. I saw multifunctional ones. I also saw that there is multicolor ones, but I didn't see one multicolor highlighter that was more than a gadget, and actually efficient to be used by professionals of any kind, especially medical field, but any kinds of office it could be, and students. And so what I designed is a multicolor highlighter. The benefit statement is 4 colors in one hand, very simple, and it's super fast to highlight. So if you guys know this, I think it's a French company, BIC, or BIC, and
Yep,
they have this all-time classic ballpoint pen with 4 colors,
yep.
and you're very fast at switching colors, and it's been selling and selling and selling and selling. And I was like, okay, I want to do this as a highlighter. So I created this mechanism, I copied it, and basically I reduced it to I think the most simple version, because after a while I realized, okay, the big ballpoint is used to write, and a highlighter is used to highlight. It's different. It's a different movement, right? You hold it similarly in your hand, but it's a different movement. And so yeah, that's I think should give you a rough idea.
Okay, so you said that there were already multicolor highlighters on the market. How is yours different from the ones that already exist? This is going back to Stephen's idea of the one simple idea. So was it one simple thing that you changed about the existing highlighters to create yours?
Yeah, so it's I think a combination of design and functionality. First of all, with almost all the highlighters out there, multicolor ones, they also have a lot of, like, they have a cap for each color. So you hold it in one hand, but then you have to take that out. Like, for example, there's a hand shaped highlighter, and you take like this finger off, and then you highlight with the finger, and then take this one. And so basically, okay, you have 5 colors in that case in one hand, but still it's very complicated to use. You're very slow. It only has small ink tanks, and then there is one highlighter which you can basically turn around, and all the 3 nibs are on one side, and then you can turn it and kind of use that to highlight. And there you have a very uncommon mechanism, and
Yeah,
it's also like people on Amazon, they write it's drying out very fast.
yeah.
And so basically, I just kind of navigated through these existing products, and I think it's not $1 million idea, but
It
I
might be.
think Yeah, well, we'll find that out. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. So from what I could tell from I saw a image of it. It looks like it's just a one. Oh, do you have it there? Oh no. Okay, I thought you were grabbing it. So it's just one highlighter like stick, and each end has two different colors on it. Is that the idea? And then you just take the cap off. So there's two. Is there two caps total, and then four colors altogether?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so moving on, we'll get a little more information on the second product, and then we'll open it up again. So with the second product that you just licensed, congratulations. Amazing. You must be so excited. Did you repeat the same process? Did you say, I've figured out these are the costs, this is what it would, end up totaling if I wanted to do the prototype, or if I want to just jump right in and do the manufacturing? Did you take the same process to the companies this time around? And what category? Is it another stationary item?
So, yeah, it's actually, I mean, the approach was still, so there's two questions, right? The process and then the category. Perhaps let's start with the category. It's a different category. It's a sports accessory. It's a cycling product, but the common ground is that both are actually good promo products. So they have a big space to put logos or slogan on them, and I think that will also be a big part of the sales through this promotional industry. But so kind of, yes, the same industry and kind of totally different. And regarding the process, both were highly influenced by the Inventright process, but still very distinct. So with the highlighter, for me, it was just one struggle after the next, and solving problems and dragging along, but also because of inexperience, right? And I guess lack of self-management, perhaps, in the sense of that's perhaps a little harsh, but I didn't know that it would work. And so like I still think probably I'm not the only one. I had a lot of self-doubt, and like perhaps nobody knows what I'm talking about here, licensing at all. In my family, my friends, they don't know what that is, and what I'm trying to do, and start to get also up to my head, I would say. And with the cycling product, it was the complete opposite. It was just one flow. I was very fast. It was a lot of fun. One thing kept like one thing led to the next, and I just kept the energy, I guess, high, and the company motivated. And so that's from the subjective perspective. And regarding the actual process, I think the key difference was I knew how the process worked. So going through step 1 to I think it's 8, the getting the PPA. It was basically, totally exactly, Edgar, is total 10, but up to 8, it was the exact same process, just different content. And then reaching out to companies was a bit different. So I actually worked there with a friend, a passionate cyclist, who actually described the problem to me, and which also gave me actually a lot of confidence. Again, like a real problem, like with the highlighter. I saw my friends struggling, and I believe there should be a solution. And with the cycling product was the same. And then we started reaching out to companies, or I did, and I very soon got some contacts of a Belgian company producing in Colombia, and a Colombian company. So in Medellin, it's a very famous or very big cycling scene there, and also big in textile, which is also the category of the cycling accessory we're talking about. And my friend was there. He's a passionate cyclist. He was training there with semi-professional, I would say. And I was in contact with the companies, and I was like, hey, okay, why don't I, I love traveling. Why don't I just go there and I figure out everything on the spot? And that was honestly, I didn't know, I didn't have a plan, but I just kind of went for it, and it was the complete flow experience. So I was reaching out to them, hey, by the way, I'm around, like if you want to meet up physically, and they were very open to that idea. Gave a factory tour. It really, how could you say, vibed between like the company and me as a person, and my friend also came in his cycling outfit, I remember. So like me, semi-professional, at least with a nice shirt, and then straight off with cycling. I think after a workout even, but it was so familiar and so so natural, and the business was just kind of alongside of that process. But it was so fast between first meeting, then in the beginning they were a bit unsure, and then they called us in after a week, and we knew we were onto something. And I think it was a total of 4 meetings. Then we went to a second company as well. We produced first samples right there, and now just signed a contract a few weeks after I left the country, and now the first batch is being produced. So basically, no following up via email, which with the highlighter was, I'm sure, 70% of the work. So that feels like a very different experience to me. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's amazing. Such diverse experiences for one person to share. It's really great. I have a couple very quick follow-up questions, and then if you guys want to start raising hands if you have follow-up questions as well, we'll get to them. I know there's a couple in the chat too. One, just to clarify, so you sold the highlighter to BIC, you licensed the highlighter to BIC, you licensed the biking accessory. No?
Sorry, the BIC was the reference product, the ballpoint, and I didn't license the highlighter to BIC, but an American company. But one of the customers of the American company is BIC, or the American pendant equivalent, Kuzi Group, I think they're called.
Okay, that's helpful. So while you license to is it a stationary company that you license to?
They're strong in stationary and promotional. That are
okay. So that's the question. Yeah. So with that, and you mentioned the biking accessories also lends itself to being a promotional item. Did you promote both items in that sense of not only is it function in this way, but it's also able to take on this promotional element?
Right. Okay, good question. So I was actually aiming for the stationary field all the way with the highlighter, and I guess that was also an important lesson. So I had a very strong feeling, or I think also wish, of this item to be a high quality, useful writing instrument, and as well sustainable, like less plastic and refillable. And soon I realized that people always perceive things differently than you imagine, especially in this idea creation field, licensing field. And that was I guess one of the most important lessons to get into the perspective of the person opposite to you, and try to understand how do they think about it, what problems do they see, and then integrate that. So to answer your question, I didn't imagine it this way, but then I started to learn and also to market it this way, which means very simply, I created a new sell sheet. I
Okay.
put all example slogans and logos on the highlighter. I went to also promotional trade shows instead of previously more stationary. So that was a pivot.
And were the folks of the highlighter, the folks that were interested when you did the pull-through marketing style approach, were they in that promotional field, or were they in a stationary field? Where were you drawing the most interest from with this product?
In the end, really promotional. So high
Interesting.
volume and like they're not individually packed, so they're gonna be sold in big
Okay.
packages, hundreds or
Oh,
thousands
great.
at the time, but very low price and low margin on the other end. Yes.
So was that a surprise as well? Did you initially intend for them to be sold as individual items?
I did, like I had this vision of going to my local. I get very specific about this local stationery store on a Saturday morning. After first cup of coffee, and then seeing my like my product there and individually wrapped. And so
Yes.
maybe that's not gonna happen the same way, but at least it will be physically available. Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like you weren't thinking as grand about the item as you could have been, which is kind of interesting, you know? Okay, I think this is a great time to start asking some of the questions from the group. We have Wolfie, do you want to chime in here? Unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi there, can you hear me?
You sound great.
Perfectly fine.
Perfect. So my question is not directly related to the product, but to the mode of working in a situation like you, internationally traveling a lot, being on different countries, even different continents. So in general, my question is about communication with, all those, since it's a numbers game, hundreds of people, at least in the beginning, and maybe later just with a few customers, but stably having a stable connection when they want to call at, which might be 3 o'clock in the morning for you, in Rio, when they are wherever. And then the other thing is sort of the technical part, the phone service, which is not very stable even sometimes. I live in a house that has a metal roof, and I, for 10 years, have only had a cell phone. I got rid of my landline 10, even 15 years ago. So internationally, that's even worse. I sometimes travel or work in Europe, and I have one company which happens to be established in both America and Europe, which is telecom in Germany, and that works all right, but still it's not perfect. Costs go up, conditions go up, stuff. How do you deal with all that?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. And as you were talking, I remember actually worrying about this topic. So, and however, I Scott, by the way, I saw my coach Scott like showed up as well. So I remember that. Yeah, I remember that I was worried I had to be 24/7 available via phone, and that was, however, especially like when I first started with my first Inventright program, I was kind of setting my up in this way to constantly be available. But then I mentioned it briefly in the beginning. I made some startup experience, and to be honest, I think there is probably much more experienced people in this field, like business or you know, like the corporate world and customer service and all of that. But I learned in my work in startup that quality doesn't have to mean constantly being available. So my clients were neurosurgeons and orthopedists, and they were asking for a lot, which I, especially in the beginning, didn't know I could give to them. But then I realized they were actually looking for something else than I previously thought. So I don't need to be constantly available, but I need to provide quality work, build up trust. I need to talk about things that I know about, and when I don't know about it, I also need to say that and do the work, perhaps to still get the answer. And I learned to apply this due to the licensing business. So basically, I don't communicate with phone. Sometimes I try to get a contact via cell phone, and I got very concretely, I have a Skype you know, paid plan. It's like prepaid, works very well to initiate a call via Wi-Fi and or you know, also like just internet, but not via the ordinary, I think your German Mobilfestnetz. Not via the phone line. And apart from that, I just communicate via email or messages sometimes, and I constantly get back to people when they need it. I solve their problems, but I'm not like they don't expect me to be constantly available via phone. So that worry initially had to, you know, like had turned out to be very irrational. So basically, I don't use my phone at all, just email, some messaging, and it works perfectly fine with the time difference. And the only thing, of course, is the time zones, and the Zurich and Brazil, Europe and Brazil, it's only a 4-hour time difference, and with the US, it's sometimes, I think, 2 until 5 hours difference. So in that sense, I chose a good location, better than China, for example, or not sure what else would be contrary to the US.
It's 9 hours actually to the West Coast from Germany, so or from Central Europe.
Okay, for you, yeah. But from
So,
Brazil, yeah.
Yeah, so I do use Skype, but for that, then you need a stable Wi-Fi internet connection, I guess,
Right.
which is maybe even easier to find these days than a phone connection when you're in places like, I don't know, Brazil, like, you know.
Have you
Right.
ever had to end a call, for example, Dennis, if the connection wasn't up to par?
I might have once or twice, but of course, this is something I consider during my travels. So I'm in Rio de Janeiro. As long as I, you know, test Wi-Fi before and I have a plan B, it always works. And basically,
Okay.
I might have had the problem once or twice, but I don't remember. It certainly hasn't played a
Got it.
role. In general, I'm
And then,
managed.
and then I guess when it gets really hairy, difficult, you just went there, right? I mean, to negotiate with them about those details of your whatever license, you
Yeah, Dennis
probably
doesn't use
visited
the
them.
phone. He just shows up.
Right. I show up at the doorstep.
Knock, knock.
Really, you just even somebody you don't know.
No,
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 no, not
no,
that
that
quick.
was you know, that was kind of a joke regarding the Colombian company. But you know, as I said before, I told them I would travel to Colombia, and if they had time, we can also do a physical meeting. And so that was what I was referring to. Mhm.
With the Columbia company and the Belgian bike company, were they the first? Was the Belgian company the first and only company you reached out to about the bike? I think you might have
No.
said a second. Was there two? So your
Mhm.
second deal, you only reached out to 2 companies and you nailed it with that. That's amazing. Keith, what would you like to contribute? And then we'll get back to the questions in the chat.
Well, actually, there was a question in the chat ahead of me, so I'll defer to Billy Rose.
Okay, that was Edgar who had that question, so let's bring Edgar up here. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. How are you? This question is for Dennis. Did you use CAD to design your product in 3D, Dennis?
So good question. This is really not my strength. Like everything technical, I had to learn or outsource. And so what I did create some renders. I think sketch up, and I learned a little bit about, like, I learned to do simple work in SolidWorks, but that was very soon replaced by the company. So sometimes I was asked about technical drawings, but Inventright it's not part of their steps to create technical drawings. I think perhaps Scott can correct me, but I think because what really sells your idea are the benefits and the excitement, and in the ideal case, and also in my cases, that creates enough of a momentum and motivation for the company to create everything needed that's down the line. But what of course has to work is, like, you have to somehow demonstrate technical feasibility through background research. Like, can it actually be produced? How will it be produced? And Inventright teaches that as well. Yes, I hope that answers your question. Technical drawings, not my strength.
And the second one, can I ask another one? Okay. You talk about the different countries, Brazil, Switzerland, Colombia, and my question is related to what nationality your lawyers, and your contract under what legal jurisdiction?
Yeah, okay. Also, I think you didn't mention it, but also Mexico City, and I think that's where, is that where you're based?
That's where I'm based. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I decided to do 2 things. First of all, build my company in Switzerland, which is the culture I know, and also I know a little bit, or the most, how businesses are created there, and how everything works, even the legal system. So yeah, that's for once. And then I work with, I consult US patent attorneys and sometimes Europeans. Like, it depends on which companies I'm working with. But I also kind of focus on these 2 markets, Europe and US, even though with Colombia it's a special case, but remember, it's also a Belgian company. So yeah, I don't do, so I reduce the complexity there. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Keith, for the space. Thank you.
Am I up next?
Yes.
All right, okay. Oi, bom dia, Dennis.
Bom dia. Você fala português, não? Ótimo.
But I'll speak English for the rest of the question. You mentioned the promotional companies. Did you find the promotional companies are more open than individual product companies? It sounded like maybe they were, and when you reached out to essentially partner with some of the molding costs, were your responses from product companies, or were they from the promotional companies?
Also a very good question. So I learned that the stationery industry is very very low and in innovation, like very boring, you could say, slow in some ways. And also at stationery shows there was more talking about licenses in the sense of, you know, applying Disney logos and characters to pens or backpacks, and not actually creating something unique, innovative, with a new benefit. And that's where I found more interest in the promotional field. And I'm actually starting to like that field more and more, because there's very creative companies and brains there, and they're very open-minded, but they're thinking like it works differently. So for example, I learned, you know, they're always considered in how to create impressions to like for the customers, or the people that are gifted usually the promotional items. How can I create quality and also quantity of impressions, which is why, you know, highlighters and pens are so common there, because they in your office, they might end up on your desk, and 50 times per day you pick them up and you see that logo. And it seems to me these companies, promotional companies, are very curious and innovative in finding new ways to create impressions.
Quick follow-up to that. Is there a trade association for promotional companies?
Cool. I'm 90% sure. I will check and send you. Are you on LinkedIn? I will send you a brief follow-up on that. I'm pretty sure there is. I'm pretty sure I have something in the back of the mind. And for Australia, I know. For the US, I'm pretty sure. I will check and get back to you.
Glenn? Oh, you know what? Before we go to Glenn, John has asked, what is your medical specialty, and do you innovate in medical?
Oh, okay. Also interesting. Well, very specifically, that was dynamic spinal implants. So the dynamic stabilization of the lumbar spine with very technical polymers. So yeah, polycarbonate urethane, that was very, very, very technical, very innovative at all, but as well, but reduced to the max. It was also only a plastic rod and a pair of screws, and around that, interesting, I think, like the application was truly innovative, but around that there was so much paperwork and regulation and finance that I just decided that this is not my jam, and I want to get out of there as soon as I can, because I want to be creative. I may want to make things happen and not fill out a piece of paper basically every time you go to the bathroom, you know, like that's almost how crazy it is. So no, I don't innovate in that field. And the second aspect is also that for that biomechanics, I think it's really like you need a very advanced kind of knowledge and very niche as far as you know, engineering is considered. So I'm not sure if there is anybody else, you know, creating real like new implants or new instruments for surgical use. So yeah, the answer is I don't innovate there at the moment.
Thanks, John. Glenn, did you want to chime in? You can unmute yourself and we'll be able to hear you. You're still muted.
I'm usually not doing that anyway. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Jennifer. I just want to get an understanding of your journey, Dennis. You reached out to a bunch of companies, 30, then 50, and so on. Did they tell you about the cost issue they had for you to come back later and say, hey, I'll share the cost? Or was that something that you kind of just perceived as a stumbling block? I'm just curious as how much initial comments you got along the lines of startup costs for you to go that path.
Right. Yeah, well, you just got me thinking again. I think a challenge is that in this field that we are learning, very often you don't get feedback at all, which is a challenge. And then when you get feedback, very often it's generic in the sense of, yeah, not at the moment, it's a good idea, but or it's not the right time. And that is also feedback, but not very useful. And then you get more concrete feedback, like it's too expensive. And that can also mean different things to different people. And in the highlighter project, it's, I was thinking, okay, I think Andrew was talking about this like during a call we had, and he was thinking, okay, the cost per piece was too high, but the company really only meant the mold costs for, like, the mold cost and the investment in molds is very expensive for a very low price product, which means you need high volume. So I kind of had to figure that out along the way, and I think what I was not good at, and I still am learning, is to ask the right questions and to sometimes be polite, be a little uncomfortable, but also still be polite. So ask again. Like the worst thing that can happen is that they still don't get back to you or give you a good answer, but sometimes they will. And if you actually ask good questions, that can also actually create a professional impression. So that's something I'm still learning, I think.
So there was a point that you realized that was a big stumbling block based on the feedback that you got.
Right.
Okay, that's because obviously there's more risk for you to share that cost.
Right. So I think Inventright they don't like teach that as the blueprints, and I understand it because it can be very fast that you spend a lot of money, and especially when learning, this can be a big risk. But for me, and that's not a suggestion, this was just what I was feeling first. I want to go from A to Z, to go through the whole process, and I want to get a signature, and I'm willing to not get the best licensing deal, which actually turned out to be a lot better than I thought. But the other hand side was, I'm also willing to put the skin in the game, which created credibility and motivated the company enough to also put down a significant investment. So yeah, does that answer your question, Glenn?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand your journey. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's hear what you have to say, and then we will be wrapping up in just another minute or two.
I just wanted to say, hey, good to see you, Dennis. Good to see everybody. I know some of you I was on with earlier. It's good to be here. Sorry I was late. I had to pick up my daughter, and just wanted to give you a big shout out and another congratulations. And I do have a question for you too. So with your pattern here, I'd like to continue that. So within the next month, I want to know, are we going to get another licensing deal? I want 3 in 3 months. That'd be a new record for me. So I'm counting on you. So where are we at with that?
Yeah, Scott, well, actually, big shout out to this guy right here. Scott helped me so much, and I had to wait for him because I was signing up for the Inventright program. They were gonna assign me to another coach, and I was like, no, I want Scott because I think he just got out with a SWOT and Scoop, and I read about all the entrepreneurial backgrounds, and by then I already had a little bit of startup experience, and that was the best decision. Thank you, Scott, for your ongoing support, and hell yes, the third one is in the works. Samples are already produced. It's this time an Italian company for a toy, and I'm not celebrating yet because I love the culture, but I don't know if a promise is an actual promise, but I've been there in the factory. We made samples. We have a meeting at end of January, and they promised to produce it. So let's see, 3 products in 3 months might be possible.
I love it. And thank you so much for saying that and sharing that. And it was so awesome working with you, and you did such a great job of being consistent. Your value system shined through, being very honest, being very open with these companies, and you approached it very much with a curious mind, which everything lined up really well. I mean, even coming into the program and learning it, but being coachable, being open to new ideas, and really being a fantastic listener, but also being willing to throw yourself out there and not being afraid to call the companies and talk to whoever you needed to talk to. So you have that I'll do whatever it takes attitude, which I think makes a huge, huge difference with all of this. And I know on the first coaching call, we talked about like, oh, is this going to be a hobby? Is this just something you're doing on the side for fun? And you're like, no, this is what I want to do, like for the rest of my life. I'm like, whoa, okay, all right, this guy's like all in. This is great. So that's awesome. So yeah, congratulations again. I'll look forward to hearing about the third one before the end of February. So clock's ticking, man. Let's get it done.
Let's do it. Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks so much to hear, Scott. Thanks in addition to just showing up and all of your amazing advice that you're constantly sharing with us. We really appreciate it. Just a few questions. Thank you, Scott. Dennis, I know we have just a couple minutes left, so I'm going to try to make this really quickly, and then we'll get to a quick announcement. But one, the cost for the prototype versus the cost of the investment you made, would you say they were about the same? Had you have made a prototype of the highlighter, would it have sort of ended up costing about the same?
Yeah, so it was actually I'm comfortable saying the numbers, so that the prototypes, and that would have been 10 prototypes, would have been 13K. At least it could have been more, and my share in mold cost was 9,000. So the company paid a little more than that, and I think they're also very efficient. Normally it could be amount to bigger amount for a couple molds that have to be done for this product. So that should, I think, give you an idea. And honestly, one of the biggest learnings in the last month for me was understanding the motivation and the working wise of different companies. So prototype companies, they make their living through creating prototypes, right? So if they're based in Switzerland or the US, they're going to charge significant amounts. But if there is a possibility to, in the future, work together, and there's a motivated highlighter company, if they see future potential, they might do the same job or even better for much less money. So
wow,
yeah.
that's such a good point to consider. Yeah, so you know, these scenarios aren't necessarily black and white. There's a lot of gray that you know, it takes those questions and just learning to get to. Another quick question: when you got the bike deal, what did you present to them in terms of marketing? Did you have a prototype? Did you just give them the sell sheet? Did you do a pitch deck?
So there it was, I think, very simple but good sell sheet and render several working prototypes. So several rounds, not just the first best you know, one I could create, and also I think a good video with a good story. So like not good in the sense of a lot of fancy visuals, but I think a good story and convincing storytelling as well, I think.
Yeah, the story, right? It's so important to get people invested emotionally before they can actually handle the product, at least. And then my last question, has the highlighter company given you the opportunity to sort of take the initiative to find opportunities, say with the bike company, to, you know, maybe get together on a big bike race and have a highlighter in the goodie bag at the end of the race, that kind of thing? Like, are they giving you a chance to take the reins yourself, or are they, you know, kind of like, we've got it, you sit back and just relax?
So I think both companies, they don't count on it, but they would highly appreciate it, and they see like the passion of creating an own product, and they would like to see that as well in putting it out there to people. So with the highlighter, for example, I'm already communicating with a Swiss company, and they want to tell the story of, you know, like how it was created at the university, and you know, like at University of Zurich, and create a story around that. And the American company loves that because it's business for them, right? And the cycling company as well, we're doing also an own brand, a simple one, and they just love the idea of me, you know, also putting it out there. It's not a fixed part of the agreement, but I think it's a part of the motivation, and also again a sign of, it's really not get the licensing deal and then we're done. But it goes on and on. I think Scott could also, he's not here anymore, but he has experienced a very similar with the experience with the Swap and Scoop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hearing that, everybody, let's keep our ears to the ground, and if we can think of any excellent opportunities where a highlighter would be a great promotional device, let's keep it in mind, and we'll send it your way, Dennis, if that's okay with you. So as we wrap up, I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Dennis for your invaluable insights and engaging discussion. It's so generous of you to share your journey and strategies with us, which will undoubtedly, you know, create an inspired and more educated, you know, way of thinking for all of us. So thank you so much for that, Dennis. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Hey, I want to, you know, like say thank you to all of you as well. Not only Jennifer for the great moderation and questions, but everybody, you know.